Welcome back to a new episode on my channel. Today we have a special guest, Dragana, who is a clinical pharmacist and a leading expert in the field of probiotics. She's the author of the Clinical Guide to Probiotic Products, which is an invaluable resource for anyone looking to make informed choices about probiotics. So without further ado, let's welcome Dragana. Dragana, let's start with how was your journey into the field of pharmacy?
Thank you for having me here, and I'll try to answer your questions very shortly. I'm known to speak a lot, so feel free to interrupt me anytime. I've been a pharmacist for a very long time. My original training is from Europe, so I was trained as a pharmacist in Europe, which at the time was the equivalent of the master's degree here. And I was practicing only for 4 years before coming to Canada. And then it took me a long time to actually get certified. And one of the reasons is that it was impossible to communicate with my university to get the transcripts, and because of the war, and that I had to take all the exams and everything else. So I got certification and started working in a community pharmacy in Hamilton, one of the small chains at the time, very proactive, very patient oriented. So got really involved in different kinds of aspects of pharmacy, patient education and professional practice, etc. And then 14 years ago, I switched to the clinical practice in a primary care setting. So that's my kind of a quick journey through the pharmacy world. I experienced all of it.
Oh, that's awesome. So what inspired you to specialize in probiotics and women's health?
Kind of two different areas of our expertise as a pharmacist. As you know, we have to really have a knowledge of most of the interventions they use with the patients to some degree, a bit of a screening and triaging who can be actually help with the advice and who needs to be referred out. Women's health is probably one of the first initiatives that I branched out, and it happened around the WHI study, which is Women's Health Initiative study in early 2000s, when that large study was stopped abruptly, and kind of a first headlines very negative about hormone therapy. Everybody was in panic, and as you know, lots of our demographics are women in menopause, and at the time, lots of them were on hormones that were standards of practice at the time, still are, but they were scared because of the initial headlines and they wanted to stop it. Um, I was curious to learn more about why this is happening and why this is a huge upheaval about hormones and menopause and women's health. So I took upon myself to actually join the Menopause Society, which is the North American Menopause Society at the time. Now it's called the Menopause Society. And then a year after, in 2002, first time they opened the certification process to the non-physicians. I took that exam and became credentials by Menopause Society as menopause practitioner. So ever since, I've been involved in learning more about women's health and educating my peers, educating patients, and others with that. And it's been a very rewarding project. So that is women's health, kind of a curiosity what got me there. And then when it comes to probiotics, later in 2008 or 2007, was originally I was approached to actually prepare the CME for the groups of physicians and pharmacists on probiotics. And at the time, honestly, I was recommending my patients eat yogurt with antibiotics. I had no idea about probiotics. And the research was just starting to hit the normal journals, and we kind of start identifying strains and everything else. So it was really in a they're kind of a beginning stages of the research in probiotics. So I was surprised that somebody wanted me to talk about probiotics, and I started doing research, and I was amazed what I was finding, the effects and mechanism of action of the bacteria and interventions with probiotics. So it started that time in 2008 as a series of big lectures across Canada to groups of physicians and pharmacists with great interest and feedback, looking at a couple of products we had in Canada at the time with the good evidence. What came out of that was that feedback was excellent, but also we identified huge frustration with not knowing what specific probiotic strain means to the patient how they actually walked in a pharmacy and buy it because nobody could actually remember the names, the long, complicated names of probiotic strains, Lactobacillus plantarum 299V. When you tell this to the patient, they'll forget it before they get out the door. And then when they walk in the pharmacy, they had no idea where to look for it. So the healthcare professionals wanted to actually have connection with the brand name, which was fairly easy because at the time, one strain had only one brand name or similar. So we prepared a chart looking at strains that we have evidence in 2008, what are the brand names, what doses have been used, gave the potential indications based on findings in clinical studies done in humans. And this is how the probiotic guide was born. And it's been updated annually because, again, the interest was overwhelming in that kind of a reference tool. And originally, the guide actually had one page and 9 products in 2008. Now we have the guide that is 24 pages and more than 100 products in it. And again, it's updated annually and it's expanded to US. And next month, actually, we are launching in the UK. So that is completely not related to my pharmacy practice in a pharmacy or in a clinic. But again, it's I guess, the core value of the pharmacist being really stickler for evidence, looking at the evidence, finding what the study is actually showing us, and then translating that science into the clinic, making it simple and quick to use. So that is kind of my interest in those two areas.
That's such a fabulous work. Thank you for all the work in publishing it. So speaking of probiotics and women's health, how do you stay updated with the latest research and developments in that sector?
So very easy, with women's health, there are so many amazing resources. I am a member of different kinds of associations, Menopause Society, Canadian Menopause Society, which is amazing association. Uh, International Menopause Society, they offer online, live lectures, lessons, education. And it's pretty much up to date, really very easy to access. Even if you're not a member of these societies, you can access the information and resources. So this is what that part is easy. When it comes to probiotic, the industry and research is growing. Both of them are growing. Interest is growing, and it's becoming very confusing. So it's a little bit more hard to keep up to date with the overwhelming amount of data coming out at us. But we have a nice team of expert reviewers. We have a team that is always searching for the literature. And because we've become known globally, we are researchers actually tell us about new research or interesting studies with the new strains. So we then annually, end of the year, review all the evidence and decide whether there's something that we add to the guide.
Oh, amazing. Now, there are always challenges when it comes to promoting something. So, what are some challenges that you face in promoting like a very sensitive topic like probiotics?
So there's always a bit of a pushback. There are pushbacks from everybody that are different. Healthcare professionals, I find physicians specifically, would say, "Oh, probiotics are natural health products. They things don't work." So there's no evidence. This is what I hear often. So when you present them with the guide that has I believe Canadian one has 200 and some references, and we encourage them to actually go through them. And again, it's online as well. You can actually get links to each study that we have reviewed. Um, I challenge them with that. Um, uh, Consumers and social media influencers are a huge challenge as well because they like the shiny label, they like the fact that something has more, it's exclusive or has more strains versus one strain or more active bacteria or CFUs per dose than others. So these are kind of different overwhelming demand for probiotics, and again, complete shutdown of any evidence for probiotics. So different kinds of challenges which you approach differently. But again, we do like those challenges, and we like to address them in different kinds of activities, education activities online, webinars, a little social media engagement that we have with our team that educates the consumers as well.
Awesome. When it comes to educating patients about like the safety of those probiotics and like their effectiveness, what are some approaches that you take when you're interacting with the patient and educating them?
What I'm finding that this is very interesting observation that because I work in a clinic which is primary care, so family doctors, and if I'm seeing patient and I might ask if they're taking probiotics. Huge majority of patients are taking probiotics. When I asking them why, they have no idea because they think it's good for them or somebody told them to take it, a family member or friend or something. And if I ask what kind, they have no idea. They cannot tell me. They might remember the label or brand name, but what are the ingredients and what is the outcome they expect? Nobody knows most of the time. So this is why I like to educate them that not all probiotic strains are the same as medication or vitamins. If you have B12 deficiency, you will not take vitamin D, you will take vitamin B12. Same thing, if you want to fix that your cold, you'll get, your fever, you'll take Tylenol, not, antacid. So these are, examples I tell them. And I always like to have access to the probiotic guide you mentioned. It's probioticchart.ca online. And I show them and I kind of teach them how to even use it. It's maybe too complicated for patients, but they understand if I select IBS as indication and put filter the products that have evidence, show them which products they are. There are options in yogurts or in capsules or powders, and I show them which ones are approved by Health Canada, and maybe even give them printout of it, and they can make a decision out of that selection which one they would like to try. And I teach them how long, what the expected outcome is, and if it doesn't work, then you stop and try something different.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, I'm sure there are several success stories where your expertise in probiotics and women's health significantly improved a patient's well-being. Can you share a memorable success story with us?
Um, this is gonna always, we as a pharmacist, I find generally are so modest. We don't like to talk about our success stories. We say, oh yeah, just we save lives. Yeah, yeah, that's our, in our, work days. It's fine. But there are few, and it's interesting. When I worked in a community pharmacy years ago, and again, just started getting involved with the probiotics and learn about it, and was kind of very excited to recommend them. We had a patient that would come in often. She did not ever take any prescriptions. She quite often would take Pepto-Bismol or something for stomach or all different kinds of over-the-counter things. And I remember her being like always bent down with the oversized jacket, very kind of, poor sleep. And, so she looked much older than she is. So talking to her, she mentioned that she's been diagnosed with IBS a long time ago, and she's been trying everything possible. Nothing works for her. She cannot sleep. She cannot, because during the day, she has this bloating and pain and bouts of diarrhea that cause constipation because she takes too much Imodium, etc. So I actually suggested for her to try a probiotic that has pretty good evidence for all the symptoms that she was describing with the IBS. So she left. Probably 6 months later, there was somebody coming in because when you have open concept pharmacy, there was a lady that comes in, very good looking, kind of nicely dressed, and she picks up the box of the probiotics. She waves at me and she says, "Thank you for saving my life." And she pays for it and she leaves. And I asked my technicians, who is this person? I have no idea what she's talking about. Says that's the lady that was coming in all miserable and horrible, wanted to end her life. She was just depressed because of the symptoms. She actually gained her life back because symptoms were more controlled. So it was very dramatic. I was like, well, visually, I could not recognize her because, again, she was one of our frequent OTC customers. I did not recognize her. So that's a probiotic story. Also, I have bad probiotic stories. When, as is mentioned in the COVID, we kind of lost connection with the patients. We had, phone and virtual appointments, and then we started seeing them again. I'm seeing a little bit older, 67-year-old diabetic patient, and she's been well controlled with metformin, just a very kind of a limited intervention. Her A1C was excellent, And she comes to do blood work 6 months later, and she's uncontrolled. So she's in the office with us, and she's again very miserable. She said she stopped her metformin because it was causing her fecal incontinence. She stopped exercising because she couldn't control. She has a, like, leak all the time. She does not go walking. She does not do anything. She's really unhappy. Monitoring her diet and everything else. But her A1C was off completely. So talking to her, we were looking at what kind of intervention we have to do, investigation. We already were doing GI consult and everything else. But I mentioned that, did you ever try probiotics? And she said, yeah, I am actually taking probiotics and actually double the dose and it's not working. So what she was taking throughout the COVID, her kids purchased some kind of generic multi-strain probiotic for her, and she was taking it regularly. And again, she was even doubling the dose, which made symptoms worse. So we told her, how about you stop those probiotics and we'll, wait for the referral and we'll figure out. 2 weeks later, when we call her to see how she's feeling, the fecal incontinence completely resolved. She restarted metformin. She was back to herself. And she said, I will never, ever touch probiotics again. Whatever it was in that combination was actually making things worse. And she actually even doubled the dose, made it even more worse. So, again, it's not always safe for everybody, and it can snowball to bigger problems later. So this is kind of, one of the kind of good stories and bad stories. We have to really have to be careful and ask patients about it. And if they are investing money into something that does not have evidence, advise them to stop.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
where the importance of like the pharmacist consultation comes in because probiotics, like any other medicines, they are a double-edged sword. So with proper counseling, you can outweigh the effectiveness will outweigh the harms, and the patient will benefit from them. But like if there's no proper counseling, or if they're not even counseled, then the harms will eventually outweigh any effectiveness.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, and again, with the women's health, there are many success stories. I've been involved with women's health counseling and talking with them and educating them for a long time, since 2002, kind of officially. Even in a pharmacy setting, we had offered private consultations and everything else. And I remember one of the things that I always had in my clinic was this. This was my tool, and I'm not being funny. Women that go through symptoms of menopause often feel alone, or often feel that nobody else is going through the same thing. They think they're losing their mind as everything else. So once they understand what's happening and the changes, and even before you start talking about potentially interventions, there's always tears. There's always tears. There's always emotional kind of understanding they are not alone. Recently, there was actually a Canadian Menopause Foundation published a report interviewing more than 12,000 women across Canada. And this is the overwhelming finding. These women, even though it's a huge demographic, felt alone, felt like, they did not know enough about what's going on and how to deal with it. And they felt they could not turn to anybody else. And this is another area that where pharmacists can step in. Even if we cannot prescribe anything, we can educate. So they're absolutely and empower women to seek help.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the like most important topics that pharmacists can counsel on, especially at community pharmacies.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting, another success story, I always kind of pick dramatic stories. With interventions with women's health, um, with the one of the some of the symptoms which we all recognize, the hallmark symptoms of menopause, hot flashes, night sweats, they're not the only symptoms. The mood changes, depression, even suicidal ideation, sleep disturbances, joint pain, kind of goes around the body, musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause, pelvic area issues. All of that can be actually associated with a drop in estrogen in going through menopause. Um, a few years ago, kind of going out, again out of the COVID and all these changes in our lifestyle and approaches. I had a patient that physician I work with referred to me to look through a whole list of the antidepressants and antipsychotics that she's been on, and nothing has worked for her. So he asked me actually to look at what next else we can use for her. She had some mood issues, and she's been diagnosed with the maladjustment syndrome, which I never heard of before. So big learning curve for me. So I see patient, I usually gather, all the information, history, and everything else. So she is at the time she's seeing me, a couple of years after the kind of menopause pandemic, it's like a COVID pandemic, and coming out of it, she talks to me that everything started with the pandemic, with the lockdowns, with having to work from home. At the same time, her kids were, early teens, so they were, also schooling from home. Her mother-in-law broke her hip, moved in with them. So it was full house of people working, trying to cope with everything. And a couple of years into that, she actually had her last menstrual period. Did not connect any of it together, did not connect the dots. And, sleep issues. When I asked whether you were waking up because of feeling hot, she said yes, but I did not sweat. I just felt hot and I could not sleep. So she did not really even clue in this is a night sweat. Even we called them night sweats, we're just feeling hot at night. She could not sleep. She couldn't cope at work. She felt brain fog, and she became depressed. She was given antidepressants. They made things worse, and kind of again snowballed after that to be referred to a psychiatrist. Taking all this information, doing all those screening questionnaires, was diagnosed with this syndrome. The last medication she was on was Abilify, which made her completely non-functional, and she stopped it. So she was again crying in the office to say, "I'm not sure what to do next." So when we look through the questions we ask women about, when we try to kind of talk about menopause, she was 2 years after the last menstrual period. She had all of the symptoms that we are associating with menopause transition change. She had no contraindications to trying hormones. She was up to date with her screenings. So I approached the doctor and I said, "This is my recommendation." Patient agrees. She would like to try, because she tried everything else. She would like to try the transdermal estrogen and oral progesterone. Let's give it 4 to 6 weeks. That's if no change, then we'll go back to the antipsychotics or antidepressants. She came back for the follow-up 4 weeks later. Even just 4 weeks later, she was a completely different person. So the only adjustment we did, we increased the dose because we started with a very low dose of estrogen, and she's been on it ever since, and functional completely, all of the symptoms resolved. So those are kind of things that we have to kind of almost think differently, not focus on one symptom, but look at the big picture. And pharmacists, again, do have the ability to see that big picture.
So those are really inspiring success stories. Thank you for sharing them with us. I would like to move into the last part of the episode. So basically, I would like to get some advices from you to aspiring pharmacists who want to specialize in niche areas like probiotics or women's health or any other niche area.
Um, Network, connect, attend meetings. Online is great, but live is even better. I would say if you like to think about what kind of niches you like to approach, one of the best conferences, and I don't have any plug-in conferences, is Pharmacy U conference. It takes place 3 times in a year across Canada, and it is something that you can actually get in touch and contact with the experts in different areas. And those experts usually have done something above and beyond just a regular pharmacy practice. So the whole day is lectures and talks, but throughout the day you have networking opportunities and abilities. So connect online. LinkedIn is great. Become a part of the groups that are exploring different options. And I think that last and probably the most important advice is, if you're planning to expand your practice or do something different and kind of a step out of the box, do it because it's your passion. Do it because it's your desire to improve patient outcome. Do not try to crunch the numbers and see what profit you can make out of it first. Profit comes. Let me tell you, you will actually get rewarded for that if you do it with passion, with the heart, and with your expertise.
Thank you so much for this awesome advice, and thank you for sharing your expertise and journey with us.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure and keep up with the great work. Pharmacists, as I said, we are so modest and so kind of shy to do our own drum roll and stuff. So we have to kind of help each other to understand how much difference you can make in patients' lives.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.